Israel has launched a full-scale ground offensive into Gaza City in what is being described as one of the deadliest and most destructive stages of the ongoing conflict. The Israeli Defense Forces moved tanks, infantry, and armored vehicles into multiple sectors of the city, backed by heavy artillery, naval strikes, and continuous air bombardments that lit the skies through the night and reduced entire neighborhoods to rubble. The operation, which Israeli officials say is aimed at destroying what remains of Hamas's military infrastructure, has turned Gaza's largest urban center into a war zone, with thousands of families fleeing under fire and countless others trapped inside their homes. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of chaos, with roads choked by people on foot carrying only what they can, as ambulances weave through the streets collecting the wounded and the dead. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry issued a statement saying Gaza City is being turned into a mass graveyard. Officials said the bombardment and ground incursions are killing not only fighters, but also civilians in overwhelming numbers, with entire families buried beneath the rubble of collapsed apartment buildings. Hospitals that remain operational are overwhelmed, with medical staff saying they have run out of critical supplies, beds, and even electricity in some facilities. Doctors are reported to be performing surgeries without anesthesia while morgues overflow, forcing bodies to be laid outside on the ground. International aid groups warn of an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe as food, water, and medicine run dangerously low, and communications blackouts leave many families unable to reach loved ones or call for help. Israeli military leaders defend the operation as necessary, saying Gaza City is the last major stronghold of Hamas, where thousands of militants remain hidden in tunnels and fortified positions. According to Israeli estimates, nearly 3,000 Hamas fighters are still operating in and around Gaza City, using civilians as shields and embedding their operations in schools, hospitals, and mosques. The IDF says its troops are moving carefully but determinedly, clearing areas block by block and engaging in close quarters combat inside urban districts. Military spokespeople have said the offensive will continue until Hamas is dismantled, regardless of the cost or the international pressure mounting against Israel. The destruction across Gaza City is visible from satellite imagery and drone footage, which show whole districts flattened, with plumes of smoke rising in all directions. Residents say the sounds of explosions and gunfire are constant, making sleep impossible. Many shelters run by the United Nations are overflowing, housing 3 or 4 times their intended capacity, while others have been directly hit during the fighting. People are reported to be drinking unsafe water, and outbreaks of disease are feared. Despite repeated calls for safe corridors, civilians attempting to flee towards southern areas have come under fire, and many say there is nowhere left to go. For those unable to move, the elderly, the injured, and families with young children, the city has become a trap. International reaction has been sharp and divided. The United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory released a report finding reasonable grounds to conclude that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The report cites patterns of conduct and statements made by senior Israeli officials as evidence of intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the Palestinian population. Israel has rejected the accusations as baseless and politically motivated, calling them an insult to the victims of Hamas's October 7 attacks, and insisting that it is operating within the bounds of international law. The United States, Israel's closest ally, continues to back Israel's right to defend itself, but has urged restraint and measures to reduce civilian suffering. Meanwhile, countries across the Arab world have denounced the assault in the harshest terms, calling it a massacre and demanding immediate international intervention. On the ground, the realities are stark. Survivors emerging from collapsed buildings describe losing entire families in an instant. Parents carry children covered in dust and blood, while rescuers dig with bare hands through rubble in search of signs of life. The Palestinian Red Crescent reports that its teams are unable to reach many neighborhoods due to ongoing clashes and bombardments. Fuel shortages mean many ambulances and rescue vehicles are immobilized. In some areas, neighbors are left to perform burials in makeshift graves near homes and streets, as cemeteries overflow and bombardment prevents access to proper burial grounds. As the offensive intensifies, analysts warn that the fighting in Gaza City could drag on for weeks, possibly months, given the density of the urban landscape and the determination of Hamas fighters. The group has claimed responsibility for ambushes against advancing Israeli units, using improvised explosive devices, sniper fire, and anti-tank missiles from hidden positions. Videos released by Hamas show gunmen firing from narrow alleyways and then disappearing into tunnels, underscoring the complexity of Israel's mission. Military experts say the cost in both lives and resources could be enormous, with the risk of drawing Israel deeper into a prolonged conflict with unpredictable consequences. The humanitarian toll, however, remains the central focus of global concern. The United Nations estimates that hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from Gaza City in recent days, with many walking for hours under bombardment to reach areas in the south that are already overcrowded and under strain. Aid agencies say their convoys have been repeatedly delayed or blocked, and that without immediate and sustained access, the crisis will spiral beyond control. The World Health Organization has warned that Gaza's health system has collapsed, and that preventable deaths from untreated injuries, infections, and lack of medicine could soon surpass those from direct combat. Diplomatic efforts to broker a ceasefire have so far failed. Regional mediators, including Egypt and Qatar, have been pressing both sides to pause the fighting to allow humanitarian aid, but Israel insists that Hamas cannot be allowed to regroup, and Hamas refuses to surrender. The United States has floated the idea of temporary humanitarian pauses, but Israeli officials remain skeptical, saying such pauses would only give Hamas time to rearm. Meanwhile, voices within the international community grow louder, with protests erupting in capitals around the world demanding an end to the assault and accusing governments of complicity through inaction. In Gaza City itself, residents describe a sense of despair and abandonment. Many say they have lost faith in promises of protection or aid, and that survival is now a matter of chance. Entire blocks lie silent, reduced to piles of concrete and twisted steel, while survivors gather around fires at night, sharing whatever scraps of food remain. The once bustling city now resembles a ghost town, with smoke and dust filling the air and the sound of drones and jets overhead creating a constant atmosphere of dread. Children show signs of trauma, crying uncontrollably or sitting in shock, while parents struggle to shield them from the horror. As Israel presses forward, the question of what comes next remains unanswered. Even if Hamas is weakened or eliminated, Gaza faces an unprecedented humanitarian disaster that could shape the region for decades. With tens of thousands of civilians killed or wounded, infrastructure obliterated, and international trust eroded, the future of Gaza and its people hangs in the balance. For now, the war rages on, and the toll mounts by the hour, with Gaza City at the heart of a conflict that shows no sign of ending